Good evening, all. I'm Steve Keplinger. I'm the rector here at Grace St. Paul's. I want to say thank you to Reverend Debbie and Miguel Flores for that opening blessing. It's got us all in the right frame of mind here for where we're going tonight. I hope you all have a bulletin. It'll give you some idea what we're doing tonight. Just a few housekeeping things for you. Restrooms are outside on this side of the building, so if you go out the back door and up that pathway right there, you'll see the restrooms. And what we're doing at this point during the pandemic is we ask you to keep your masks on while you're in the pews. We will take our masks off to speak to you. Our singers will keep their masks on while they're singing. As you can see, we have windows open on both sides of the church and all the doors open, so we have plenty of fresh air coming in here, and we're in a good place there. There is a touch-free water fountain on the corner outside here in the same back corner. There are water bottles in the back of the church. If you don't have a container for water, we want you all to hydrate, so get plenty of water. If one of our deacons could hold up one of those water bottles back there, if I can get someone's attention. I can't. Thank you, upstairs in the booth. So the water bottles in the back there, so if you want to just grab one and get some water, you're in good shape there. And we are just so grateful that you are all here tonight to hear from Apache Stronghold and find out where we are and to pray them and bless them on their way. So thank you for being here.
Amy Juan, if you would come now.
All right, let me start over then. Hey. Well, it's good coding. Shamai Masma. How's everybody doing? Good. My name is Amy Juan, Anya Pchigik Amy Juan. I come from the Tanatim Nation, from different communities. Yajij and Yaog, Jijgik, Romelda Miguel, Sylvester Juan, and Yakak and Yawoska, Jijgik, Mary Melissa Miles, but Daniel Juan, but, and Yahurch and Yabab, Jijgik, Mary Elizabeth Miguel, but, Lawrence Miguel, but. And as always, I'm really honored and just happy to be here, especially to be here with the family, to be here with the Apache Stronghold, and all of the supporters. Always feels good, and just want to welcome Wensler and the family, who have also, become my family. So it's always good to see you guys, and just welcome you back to home. This part of home, our community, and the family that is here in Tucson here in Tucson, and just want to welcome everyone with a song, and thank you to Miguel for the blessing and a good medicine that we're seeing, we're smelling and we're feeling right now, and of course, sharing that good song medicine and good energy, and hype us up for what we're going to hear and what we're going to learn and experience tonight. And so I'm going to share a song about the hummingbird. And, hummingbird is, the Wipismut is something that connects all of us, Yaqui, Yoeme, and Apache, and a lot of other communities. And especially, during this time, we've been through a lot of challenges in our personal lives, in our community work, and so on and so forth. And I'm always reminded of the hummingbird when I feel a little challenged, because in our stories, when the world was flooding, Iitoi told the birds told the people not to be scared, that something was coming, but not to be scared and to have faith. And just to share a little bit about that story, the water rose so high that the birds were hanging onto the clouds, and the water was beginning to touch their tail feathers. And the big birds, the hawks and the eagles and the big birds, they were getting scared and they were starting to cry. And it was the hummingbird who reminded them to have faith. And in another story, when the wind and the rain got chased away, and everybody tried to find them and tried to use their medicine to help bring them back. And it was the hummingbird who stepped up and said, "I'll do it, I can find them." And everybody laughed at him because he's such a small bird. And they said, I don't know. But he was very smart. And he took a feather from under his wing and he put it in his mouth, and then he flew. And that was how he found the wind and the rain, was that slight breeze, and he brought them back. And so, it's just always a reminder that it's not the biggest and the mightiest. It can sometimes be the smallest with the biggest heart and the biggest faith. And so I'm going to share this song, and it's about going to the ocean to bless yourself on the shore with this hummingbird that's also with you. And it's also one of the first songs that I learned when I was small. So it has a really special place in my heart, and I hope that it helps to uplift us today and for the work ahead, the continuing work ahead. So. We be Samarinya, nyai wanya pichamita. We be Samarinya, nyai wanya pichamita. Kam hoi mai hata, kachem hawa himata. Kachem hawa miyamenya pichamita. We be Samarinya, nyai wanya pichamita. We be Samarinya, nyai wanya pichamita. Kam hoi mai hata, kachem hoi himata. Kachem hoi miyamenya pichamita. We be Samarinya, nyai wanya pichamita. Kam hoi mai hata, kachem hoi himata. Kachem hoi miyamenya pichamita. We be Samarinya, nyai wanya pichamita. Kam hoi mai hata, kachem hoi himata. Kachem hoi miyamenya pichamita. Sapo. Thank you. And so with that, I'm going to introduce the hummingbird. My sister Vanessa Nosi, who, I say that playfully, but also seriously, that when I, shared about, the characteristics of a hummingbird and having that faith and being smart and having a vision, I see that in Vanessa and just the way that we support each other, and she's my sister, so I'm really happy to be able to introduce her up to the front this evening. So, Sapa Vanessa Nosi.
I hear she, Vanessa Nosy Gonce. Hello, my name is Vanessa Nosy. I want to thank my sister, Amy Wan. It's always good to always tell her, you give me good energy, and there's times as women, we need that support from another woman, and I always seem to be able to call her, and she talks to me, and I talk to her, because we all go through the same struggle. We're all fighting for the same issue, and that's even all of you here today, is fighting to protect Nagosan, Mother Earth, fighting to protect our religion, our spirituality. It's this world today that we're living in, and this corporation of it stripping away our identity and our religion, not just as indigenous people, but all people. The Apache Stronghold fighting to protect Chichilbeth Lagotil is fighting for all of us. What happens to Oak Flat, the continued destruction of our natural resources being at risk of being destroyed, and our religion and spirituality on continuous death row. If it's gonna happen to us, it's gonna happen to everyone. So with that, I wanna thank everybody for taking the time to come out today to be here with us and to listen to our stories, to get the update of what Apache Stronghold is doing, because it takes all of us. We're in a huge crisis from environmental disaster with climate change to our human rights, to our freedom of religion, and that's gonna take all of us to come together to make that change through spirituality, through prayer, and through also not being a bystander and reaching out and making those changes, whether it's contacting our lawmakers, our congressmen, our senator. It's gonna take all of us. Before I go on, I wanna introduce my daughter, Juanse. I'm sorry if I get emotional. Listening to what my sister Amy had to say and going through the teachings that have been passed down in my family from my father, my grandmother, we always talked about the future generations and how we need to prepare them to take on the road to continue to fight and to continue for us to exist. We as indigenous people, Ineb, being Apache, it seems like the fight never ends. My oldest daughter always says, when I started fighting was that first breath I took, because our people weren't supposed to exist. We were supposed to be extinct people. So when I took my first breath, I wasn't supposed to be here. And that's when the fight began for me. But it's also passing that our religion, our way of life, that spirituality that Yosen, the Creator, has given to us, to our children. So I'm honored because my third daughter here, she has taken on that role to stand by her grandfather and her great-grandfather, the late Montos Logan, and learn the songs and the spirituality of the prayer that connects us. So I want her to come up and sing a song, a blessing songs, because today's a good day. We're all here together. And so with this blessing song, she's gonna sing for us.
Dagote Base Pike Love Gonze. Hello, my name is Base Pike, and right now I'm gonna sing a song that's called a prayer song. It's going with my prayer song. This song is a blessing song, and I just want to have you guys have a good day and bless you guys on this, on your journey and on your path that continues in life. So I'll start now. Shil kai beko jana sha, shil kai beko jana sha, gajana show. Shil kai beko jana sha, gajana sha, gajana show. Shil kai beko jana sha, shil kai beko jana sha, shil kai beko jana sha. Gajana show, shil kai beko jana sha, gajana sha, gajana show, shil kai beko jana sha. Ni ha go chilada, ya ha go chilada, isitago yada, naya san, behadati, kuspati atago, lesle ancha bit okay, yepe yaya til, kuya ego jana, dana yosle ahe. Neya shil kai beko jana sha, shil kai beko jana sha, gajana show, shil kai beko jana sha, gajana sha, gajana show, shil kai beko jana sha. Isadagoyada Ichihada Dini Beijaya Til Shishihada Dini Beijaya Til Yagajana Til Dana Asla Alaya Dana Asla Ichi I Beijaya Til Kuya Ego John Dana Yose Ahe Neya Shukai Bego Jona Sha Shukai Bego Jona Sha Gajana Show Shukai Bego Jona Sha Gajana Sha Gajana Show Shukai Bego Jona Sha Ni Anago Wai Yonazini Nago Slocheni Nago Slicheni Ancha Dishla Bishla Godiana Ibiana Tashi Dahalena Ana Ligo Shiriana Shukai Bego Shona Sha Shukai Bego Shona Sha Gajana Show Shukai Bego Shona Sha Gajana Sha Gajana Show Shukai Bego Shona Sha I bitana bansanaya naya zane on behadati Kuspati atago lesha ancha be okai Ugana ishkini ugana alini yebe ayatil Kuya ego jon hatana yose ahe neya Shukai bego shana sha Shukai bego shana sha Gashana show Shukai Gajana Sha, Gajana Sha, Gajana Show, Shukai Begajana Sha, Shukai Begajana Sha, Shukai Begajana Sha, Gajana Show, Shukai Begajana Sha, Gajana Sha, Gajana Show, Shukai Begajana Sha. Yeah, Sean.
Thank you, Bonsa. You know, she sets that perfect example of what we as Apache Stronghold has continuous said is protecting the future generations, protecting our way of life, our spirituality, Nago Sun, Mother Earth, passing on our way of life to our future generations so that we can continue to exist. With Oak Flat, you know, this is where these songs are taught. These are where these ceremonies are taking place so that our future generation knows what it is to be Apache, that they can live that Apache life, pray as an Apache, pick the medicine as Apache, to pick our foods, everything that is taught to us from our ancestors to now, you know? And so when I look at Bonsa and I hear her sing, she is that future that we are fighting for, and those yet to be born. We see all these pictures here of these girls that have had their changing and transitions of becoming a woman there at Oak Flat. If Oak Flat is destroyed, if Resolution Copper gets its way, if the United States don't make a stand, then these children, these women now will no longer exist. This will be gone forever, their way of life. And it's gonna take all of us to come together so that this doesn't happen, because we all know that along with our spirituality, along with the religion, you can't separate the environment from our way of life. It coincides with one another. And if our environment, if Nago Sun and Mother Earth is destroyed, then we will no longer exist. But not only us, but all of you. You will not have a future. Your families will not have a future. So again, I want to thank you guys all for being here and taking the time out to listen to us and to spread the word. That's what I encourage you here today, is not only just listen, but voice it. Voice what you heard. Voice what you're being taught. Go to your congresspeople. Go to your Senate. Tell your friends. Tell your families so that they know what's happening, because if this happens, then everybody's going to be affected. We already know that Arizona is beyond a mega drought. We're at a point of aridification. That means there's no turning back. So with the Apache Stronghold fighting for our spirituality, we're fighting for Nuggles Son so that everybody has a future. With that, I want to introduce my father. It's always an honor and a privilege because I'm extremely blessed to be raised by a man that has devoted his whole life. We as a family had to make sacrifice because for whatever reason, Yulson has chosen him to take on this path, to take on this work for not only the indigenous people, for not only the Ined, the Apache people, but for all people. And so I'm very honored and very blessed to have a role model, to have a father that has done just that, has set the example for me and the rest of my family to follow. And like I said, I'm completely honored because I've been with him from day one. I've seen all the hardships and sacrifice he's made, but he always tells me, Ness, what else is best than doing Creator's work, no matter what comes with it? You have to understand that, because me as a daughter, I'm always like worried. That's just my natural, I'm one of the oldest. So I constantly worry about him, living at Oak Flat, making that sacrifice and being there, praying for all people, praying for Nuggles Son. So I'm very honored and blessed to call my father, Wenceslor Nosey Sr., former chairman of the St. Carlos Apache Tribe and founder of Apache Stronghold.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to all the people, and I thank you, let's give these guys a round of applause. Let's, to organize and bring us all together in this way. It's really a hard task to do, especially in the society that we live in. But I'm really thankful, and to all of you out there, who made your way here. You didn't have to be here tonight, but you're here, and that's the most important thing. In Oak Flats, people ask me, when you take a picture, you do this, why? And a lot of it refers back to my teaching from my mother. She would tell me that sometimes the longest journey in life is just to reach from here to here. And people can give you a lot of different definitions about life and how long it is. But she says to me, sometimes we never make it. We fall short. And so in the struggle before my mother left the world was really important for me to be with her and to do this together, because she would tell me it's a reminder to put your hand over your heart. So if I can ask everybody to do that with me, just put your hand over and then touch your heart. And that's what we're doing here tonight. I want to thank you, because coming here tonight is more of a family. I would really want to thank you, because I'm more here as a brother, an uncle, a friend, but family, because we have to be. And the reason why I say that so strongly is because I didn't just start talking. I just didn't start coming out. I was born into it, like how Vanessa talked about Nalin. And what I remind people in San Carlos is that, I was born in 1959, and I'm really the firstborn sibling, well, other than my brothers and sisters, of San Carlos becoming a reservation. But my mother and my dad were born in the early 1920s, and they were prisoners. And their parents walked into San Carlos as prisoners of war. So I remind people how recently that's been. It's just been around the corner for us. So my daughter is second-born. My grandkids that are here are third-born. And it's very new. And so before I say anything and everywhere I travel, I make sure that I learn. I make sure that I listen to understand. Because in this world that we live in today, it's just not Native people. It's all of us. It's all of us. And believe me, I've learned so much that it seems like every time I go out and across this country, I meet more people, and I'm always adjusting. I'm always adjusting. Because, one size of a shoe doesn't fit everybody. But we got to find one that is comfortable. And so in making this journey from what we talk about just in Chalcedon, which is Mount Graham and Oak Flats, Chebugote, what's happening is going out there is trying to educate people about what's happening to a holy, a sacred site where deities live. And so I find myself reminding people of, and I'm not very good at the Bible, but knowing parts of it, that in the Bible they talk about angels. And when we talk about deities, we're talking about the same thing. And so I had the opportunity to travel different parts of the world, and there are petroglyphs in these ancient places that are also in those ancient places the same. So that tells me that there was a spirit that God created that was around the world. And I know for us Apaches, we have no words that really segregate us. And when the first people who came into this country, they were made reference to Nikire. I guess they're your relatives. They're our relatives. But the history books don't talk about that. They don't say any of those things. Because the people accepted these people that were coming in. Because of hardships, they didn't know this country. But the history books don't say anything about that. It doesn't say anything about our loyalty to the environment and to the creation that God created the world to be. They never say nothing about that. And it's just like the songs that we're saying, they're ancient songs. They're like a biblical. When they're singing the song, it's a reminder. You know, if you understood what it was saying, it's just like somebody reading the Bible. It's the same thing for us. But it's a reminder that the environment coexists with us and that one cannot live without the other. And that is our responsibility here on earth. And so on the reservation, you know, it's kind of like, this is real simple stuff to understand. But when you get out of the reservation, it's like, how come they don't understand this? And so I had to take like several steps back and began to go out and begin to learn. Because before I say anything that's going to be critical, I want to be able to say that, please don't let me offend you. Because what I'm doing is putting you in my shoe, in my body, in my eyes, and you're seeing it from our perspective, which nobody's never done. I mean, we were classified so many things in these history books and movies made to make us look really, really bad. But they never told the true story. But if we know what colonization is, and if we know what capitalist is, then you should already define what they were trying to teach you in these movies. Because they had to remove us from these places. And I tell people that as much as like, and I got to speak for us Apaches because, you know, that's really where I can embrace, but I know that there's similarities out there. But one of the things that we say is that, you know, we didn't know that they were here for the natural resources. We didn't know any of that. Now, the reason why I said is because, let me go back to talking about us as prisoners of war. It wasn't until 1934, 1936 that the San Carlos Apache tribe became recognized as a reservation. Prior to that, it was a place of holding us Apaches as prisoners. But not only that, in the 1934s to the 1950s, there were a lot of federal laws that prohibit us. And that's where, you know, the opening prayer that was done was great, because those people suffered. Those people never returned. So imagine your kids, imagine them taken away and never to ever to return. You know, imagine what they gone through. And I remember being the chairman of the tribe, there was a letter sent from the officer that was in charge in San Carlos and told the people in Congress that you cannot take a wild animal and make him a pet, a house pet. This is what you're trying to do to them. They're going to die. And so a lot of our people looked at the world being over and began to not live anymore. So it's a great tragedy that we still live under today. But when you go through the time of how the federal laws had incarcerated us, and I would say people that I always laugh and I say, you know, in America, President Nixon does not look very good. You know, you hear all those things about President Nixon. And I sit there and I kind of laugh. I said, I wonder if they're not telling the real truth about him, because in the 1970s, he gave Indian people self-determination. And that pissed off Congress. That pissed off everybody, that Nixon gave the Native Americans self-determination to decide on their own. And he also freed up federal dollars in the responsibility of the federal government to help us in our education, which in 1969, Arizona finally opened up the colleges to allow us to go to school. And that's why a lot of them went to trade schools in California, LA, Oakland, Chicago, all these places, and they never came back because there was still the assimilation program to assimilate us out there so that we would not want to come back. Because by then, they knew that the tribes had rights to these very important land bases. And these land bases had natural resources that they were after. You know, it wasn't for the betterment of the people of America or the Indian tribes. It was a way to remove us. So they tried and made all this effort to really change the course of this country. So that's why I say that we live under a great deception, you and I. Not just me, you and I. And it's a scary thing to live under because it affects us no matter what. And I know you're taught no different than me that if we do something wrong, it can continue and continue into our families, into the next generation, because they're not told the truth. And when I became the chairman of the tribe, I really scared the people in Washington because I started bringing these things out. Then they said, no, we give you this, we give you that, you have a better life. Then I say, then why is the richest people in Sedona come see me and they're not happy? With all the money they have, they're not happy. I said, your colonized world created that social way of life, that they're not happy. I said, you know what? It's in everybody's DNA that we know from right and wrong. It's in every one of us. But when are we going to listen? So there was a lot of things that our people said that really didn't give me an answer, but they gave me a direction. And that allowed me to go visit people and began to sit with people across the country. Black people, white people, Native people, Asian people. And I come home and I say, God, Teresa, it's harder than what I thought. It's big, it's deep, because a lot of people are sleeping. There's no way none of us are going to win it through the federal system, because that whole system is designed to benefit those who are in power, those who don't want to lose what they have. Because Resolution Copper, a board member, a stockholder from England says, you know what, Mr. Nosey, because he was upset, calls me all the way from the other side of the world and he tells me, in our meeting today, because of what happened in Australia where they destroyed indigenous sacred sites, and they're doing it here with you people, the stockholders asked the CEO and everybody, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to our children and our grandchildren? And they're talking about profits. And so in return, Resolution Copper, well, Rio Tinto said to them, oh, don't worry, we're buying up the water in America. We're going to control the water. And these are the mining people. And what you got to remember is that a lot of these mining people are not based here. So when we talk about Oak Flats, just not too far from here, is that there hasn't been no change. China is still taking 75% of the copper. And if there's any uranium, they still have that going to Iran. They haven't even changed that discussion. And yet, in the news, we're hearing our country say all these things about these two countries. And it's amazing to sit there, and I'm like, doesn't everybody in America get it? You know, do we get what's going on? Or are we just really numb? You know? And so that's why it kicked me back to, what is this journey I'm on? This journey isn't about the Apache people. This journey is about spirituality. This journey is about God creating the world and bringing back the most important preaching that he gave, or he blessed us with. That everything in this earth, Mother Earth, is intertwined. You can't live with one or the out, one without the other. And we all have a purpose. We all have a purpose. But something happened. Something happened. So I tell people, when you hear me talk, don't get offended. I said, whatever nationality you are, you're probably hearing your great-great-great-grandfather talking to you, because this is what they went through. Because in the story of our people is that in the Bible, I believe he's known as Lucifer, that he was already on the other side of the world. Now let's go back to the other side, pre-America. Look at all the atrocities that were happening there. Look at all the first colonization that was going on, capitalism, all of that. So when you think of that, you got to know that those people were crying and praying for salvation, for help. Help. And somehow America, this place came, knowing that every other part of the world was being taken over, being destroyed. So this was here. So even today, we believe that the Creator, known as God, sent the people here as sort of saying the last opportunity, probably knowing that this would be the last fight of a human race. And I tell people, we're living in that time. You sitting here, me standing here, we're living in that time. What are we going to do? Because you have to go back to spirituality, to a religious way, and a purpose and a reason. Somebody change all of that to give a whole different perspective. Because what my mother used to say was, it's like a pond, and you drop a pebble, and it creates circles, rings. And she says, you got to remember, because when the new rings begin to form, then truth will begin to come forward. But will the people be ready? And they say that there's going to be a time that in this place, which is America, that the people are going to cry. And when the people cry, it's time now to move on a spiritual journey. Because that's the only thing that's going to win us. And I believe that because when we ran all the way to Washington, D.C., 6 miles away from Washington, an elderly white lady and an elderly man, her husband, stopped us and said, "Are you the group that we've been hearing about? Wow, we never would dream we would run into you, and you're right here in our street." I stopped because they were elders. And it was a very important stop because it confused me like crazy after that. Because what they said to me was that the lady cried and she says to me, "I don't know why we did what we did to your people. You know, Mr. Nosey," well, no, she didn't call me Nosey. She said, "You know, when we elect our people and they go over there," and she was pointing to Washington, she said, "I don't know what happens. They become different. They're not the same people. And I wish I could do something, but the only thing I can do is jump on your back and go with you. Because what I believe is that you people can help us change this country. And boy, the last 6 miles I was like, really confused. Like, okay. Now my tail got longer. That's okay, She said something really important. Then it took me back to when Teresa and I went to Italy, and a lady argued with the parliament, and she stood up and they gave her time to talk. And she gave me an old medallion, real old. And she told everybody in the crowd that this side of the world, we messed it up. She says, and I'm here to see him because these are the people that can heal the world. We have to stand with him. But we're terrible. So this is to protect him from when we think bad, because he's got work. So she told me, you're in my country. I want you to wear this to protect you. It took me back to that day. And then it took me back to when I met the African people. And when they shared with me that when a family from America toured and said to him that, man, I feel really bad for you people, the tragedy and everything that you went through here in Africa. This must have been the worst, unimaginable. Then he said to me, he turned to the family from America and said, no, this isn't the worst. He said, then the guy asked, well, where is the worst? He said, in your country. The Native Americans. That's the worst. So he shared that with me, So working on being 63, it took me a lot of places to learn and understand. Because what my mother used to say was that you can be mad, you can be angry, and if you want to hit him, you can hit him. If you want to kill him, you can kill him. But son, is that who you really are? Is that what God made us to be? You have to go back to the beginning, because we are the people who pray. It's not that we're any different. We kept what God blessed the world with. And what you got to remember, she said, is that they sent a man and they call him Jesus. They sent a man to handle those who are not disciplined, to teach them. But the rest of us that understand God's greatest gift to the world, we're okay. But it's those people, they need Jesus because they're not disciplined. So he had to set an example, And I was sharing with a friend how I meet some people who are not believers of Jesus. And I talk to them. Then I talk to a lot of Christian people who kind of get mad at them. And I always remember my mother taking me outside and saying to me, in this world, so many people are going to say different things. But son, look out here and look at what's real. These things need you like you need them. And if this is all gone, then we're even worse than the first children that God made. And all those teaching, that she gave me about what was so important that makes up what and who we are and how we're tied to the earth. Then I started asking the question, how come nobody preaches about it? That's when we get into the capitalist side of the story, of how that had a major impact. And my wife and I would sit with people from the Roman Catholic Church, because we went to this gathering like this and we didn't know that they sent a cardinal to debate me. And when I found out, because all the, translating, And then they're sitting there saying, yeah, you can debate this cardinal. And then he walks in and he's got everybody stands up and I'm like, oh, walking down the hallway, you know. I was like, what? I'm going to debate this guy? And they go, yeah, it's a debate. And all the cameras are on and everything. Anyway, he sits down and he does his thing, and then they turn to me. And I said, I'm not debating him. And then they get upset with me because I'm not debating him. And I said, that's not my place to judge. I'm not judging anybody's religion. I'm not. That's the Creator's job. I'm not going to take the Creator's job. You know, I'm not. So I'm sorry. You know, you can say whatever you want to say about us Apaches or Native people in America, but I'm not saying nothing back because I'm not the one that wants to be punished. You can get punished, not me. And it ended with him just walking out upset. And everybody was upset because they wanted a really big debate for, you know, because it was televised and everything. But I told the people, I said, I'm not here for that. I didn't come to Italy to speak like that because it's not my place. I said, but I will tell you something if you let me that concerns me. I said, how do you know spiritual? How do you know angels? How do you relate to the deities? So the one guy said to me, wow, how do you know? I said, no, I just want to know. I said, you know, so they gave, you know, they more read different parts of the Bible to me. Then I said, okay, that sounds good, but how do you know? And then they finally asked me, like, why? Why do you say that? So I said that, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mount Graham. Mount Graham is another area that's being desecrated that they went after for telescopes. And right now, there's 3 telescopes that sit on Mount Graham, and one belongs to the Vatican. And so what we found out was that when they found out that Mount Graham, like Oak Flats, have deities, they wanted to come take the mound, be a part of taking the mound because of the deities. And then so the argument was, you know, it was holy and sacred. So what they did was they sent a cardinal, one of the top cardinals from the Pope, flew into Tucson, and it was on the news and everything, in the paper, and they got into really nice SUVs. You know, I got to admit that. That was really, really cool cars they had. But anyway, we followed them. They went through Wilcox and got to the base of Mount Graham, and so everybody followed the cardinal up, got to the top, big group of people, and we're in the back just kind of watching the whole thing. So he tells the people, and it's translated, that leave me. So they push everybody back. So he walks around, and then he comes back to the crowd, and he tells the crowd, I didn't feel nothing holy. Nothing's holy and nothing's sacred here. So he gets back in his car, goes down the hill, and then we see the reports. He's back to Tucson, stays the night, visits the church, and then on his plane back to Italy. So I go home, and my mother in Apache says, Hatenni, what did they say? So I told her what I just told you. And then I always remember her grin and her laugh. She says, that's not how you go to a holy place. She goes, you don't go up like that. There are corridors that you go through. Because the environment is the corridors that opens to the heavens. So the environment is the one that tells the holy place and the deities that good people are coming. So then, you know, the portal opens. And then she goes, I thought they knew. And so that's kind of how the conversation ended. So that's kind of where I learned that we lost a lot of these connections that play a vital part to our being. And so that's why our lives are hard and it's short sometimes, and the difficulties that we go through. And there's so many things that were cut from that. And I tell people that work for Resolution Copper, I say, I'm not mad at you. I don't hate you. I know you suppress. Because in the town of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the town of Globe, Miami, and Superior, and all these mining towns. Believe me, they all support us. But they can't because the mines control the towns. They're in the government. They're in the city. They're in the water. And even our court case in Arizona, when we found out that 3 of them come from minings. There was only one educated person that went through school but never had any employment with the mine that was on the committee. So they're not stupid. They set up their pongs. And we're like, does anybody else see this except us? It's unfair. The system is unfair. And I used to laugh about my tribe. I used to think that our government didn't know what it was doing until I went to the city council meetings. I was like, whoa, this is still like the Wild West. They had an opening on the council seat, and they picked a guy that worked for Resolution Copper, and by the people, put him in the seat. He was already a councilman. And we're like, don't you even vote? Or do the people have a say? And then on top of that, they were voting on supporting Resolution Copper, and he asked the attorney, should I vote? And the attorney says, no. If I was you, I wouldn't. Give us some time to research this, but I would say, no. And then we'll never forget the mayor saying, I got you on here. I need your vote. I need you to make the motion. Come on. So he makes the motion. But what was so cool was the rest of the council killed it. So then we found out that there was never an official letter from these towns that were official in Washington when the hearings were going on, and yet they were saying that they had letters passed from these towns. So I feel really bad for these towns because they're suppressed, these people. And they whisper to me, Wentzler, we support you because we need water. Water. How are we going to survive without water? And then where the mine's going to go and the subsidence is going to occur, that main road, if you guys are familiar with that goes through Superior to Globe, that's subject to fall. So they already have a plan to reroute it through Kearney and up the mountain from Pinnell Mountains that Globe is here and San Carlos is here, and it's going to run right through, and then the people can go up to Sholo and those areas. So when I met with John McCain, John McCain was upset, and then he tells me, he says, Chairman Nosey, look, you got to look at it like this. These people have been taking everything from you. Now that this is going to happen, think about it. You can have outlet stores, you can have McDonald's, Jack in the Box, all the people going, you're going to get the business, or you could kill Globe. And I'm looking at him like, just the other day you were talking in Globe, caring for them for jobs and opportunities and all this stuff. And then over here he's telling us, take advantage of them. And I'm like, and I tell you, man, it's a real confusing world when you deal with the politicians. It's crazy. Mount Graham and Oak Flats, they tell you, go talk to those European countries. They're the one. That's why my wife and I had to travel and talk to these countries. Resolution Copper, go to England, go to Australia. And I'm like, hey, I thought we had like you people in here. I thought you guys are supposed to be taking care of the well interests of this country. It doesn't make any sense. Then I go on to learn that they're just establishments in the system. I mean, I know my family here for 30-something years, they've seen me talk to people that are running in our area and have lied and lied and lied in our faces, in front of my kids' faces. It's really, really sad. Then when I became a chairman, I'm in Washington, and they invite me to their after parties, and they're high, they're drunk. Oh, Mr. Nosey, come here. Oh, yes, we agree with you. Yeah. But you know what? We just can't do it. And then I'm like, wow, and then they face the state of Arizona. They talk to you people like, they mean well. And so, I tell the tribes, I don't even know anymore. Republicans or Democrats, I don't even know. I said, none of them are trustworthy. None of them is looking for the best interests of our people. Now, I'm not referring to all of them. There have been some good ones that somehow by us people have gotten in there to do something. But not all of them. And that's what's really scary. And that's why I share with people that what I've learned is that we have control. But are we using that control? But I think when we don't understand a place like this that gives us morals, integrity, religion, understanding of why we're created, if we don't use that, then this is what we get. Because in our belief, there's always good and evil, like two vehicles. But it's us that drives good or bad. Evil and good is always going to be there, but it's what you're going to move forward. What are you going to move, this or this? And we're not paying attention to what we're doing. I guess my whole point when I talk to people is that water feeds you. Water gives you life. All these things that we have today is going to run out. They're not telling you it's running out. But the whispers behind closed doors in Washington, they know it. So my daughter got married to a Cree Indian, and she's up in Montana, so I get a chance to go there. And so when Montana leaders found out I was there, I attended one of the meetings, and they told me that we got a problem. Maybe you can help us out. And I'm like, oh, okay. And they said, we know your Indians are against pipelines, because they were talking about what's happening in Standing Rock, the pipelines. So, but we want to know if you're against this. I said, well, what's that? If we have to one day run pipelines from Montana, Washington, all the way to Arizona, would you guys be all right if it's water? And I'm like, hey, that's new to me. What are you talking about? They said, well, Arizona's going to run out of water, so they're already talking about how can we get water to Arizona. And we don't want the Arizona people moving up. So if we can get water down there, would that be good? Then another option they're talking about is taking water just below Mexico and working with Mexico, because that's the closest that they could bring the water in. But making out some deals with Mexico. All of that discussion is going on behind closed doors. And so they're asking us Indian people, well, do you agree? Is that okay with you? And I'm like, how come you don't tell America? How come you don't tell them? Oh, they don't understand. They elected us. We're making the decisions. And then I tell them, are you really making the decision, or is it corporate people making the decision for you? Then they don't want to answer that. So these are the things that we deal with. And it's important to understand it because you live it. I live it. This is what we're dealing with. And that's why no legislative leader would really like to have a sit-down conversation with Native people. Because our parents, grandparents, seen what this state of Arizona looked like. They know. So there was an argument that took place when the United States came in and had all their professional forest people, and they wanted the San Carlos people to clear cut, burn all the pine cones, pine needles, clear cut. And it was going well. I mean, we had an educated Apache there too, going real well. And I was sitting in the back. I remember I was like 21 years old. And I remember an old man stood up and he says, he reminded the Apache leaders that you got to let an elder speak. And so he was granted to speak. And he says, he looked at the Apache guy who had a degree, and he said to him, when we send you off to school, it was to help us understand and work through these difficulties. It wasn't for you to get educated and turn against us. But I'm going to tell you why. So he turned to the people and he said, think about it. If we had fire problem, don't you think that there would have been major fires a long time ago before you came? He said, because those pin needles you talk about, they're cushions. After years that it drops, it creates cushions, like a sponge, he said. So when it rains, the water stays in there to feed the trees. And he said, like children that are born in the world are either animals that have children. Not all of them make it for a reason. But it's the same way with these trees. Not all of them make it. Only certain ones make it. But now you're going to clear cut everything, so that means that these trees, 10 kids are going to make it now instead of 2. So what you're going to create is you're going to create steps. And now the mother tree is going to be killed. You're going to kill the mother tree. You may think I'm stupid, but I'm not, because I know what you want that water for. Because you want all that rainwater to come off and go into the tributaries and go into that lake and then go down there. He said, we're going to have a lot of problems. And I remember he got up and he walked out. And today we have a lot of problems in our fire. And they got to clear cut, they got to clear cut, they got to keep cleaning it out. They got to cut more baby trees. You know, it seems like they got more work than what they had before. And if they would listen to this intelligence that has been there for hundreds of years, it could be a big part of managing and how to manage. But no, it was the water. It was all about the water of what they wanted. So here, as my daughter and everybody was saying, is what we're confronting, is water. You know, I know that in the religion, it's so important to us because it's our identity, it's who we are, and how we came into the world, and how we're supposed to be continued, intertwined. The water is a great gift to all of us. What they're not telling you is how much of that is going to be contaminated. What they're not telling you is how much of the aquifers are going to change. They're not telling you any of that because, and this should angry everybody, is that day one, they went after an exemption. They never were going to follow the Environmental Protection Act or policy. Every one of those laws, the criteria that you have to follow, they never was going to follow it because they were going to take and take. And so we fought since 2002 when it finally became apparent what they were going to do. But it wasn't until 2015 when the exemption came in that they got what they wanted, when John McCain got upset. And this is what they still support. But because of prayers, because of all of you and all the people, different places who've been praying and coming together, they haven't gotten it yet. They have not gotten this place yet. It's not over. It will be over if we just lie down and don't believe anymore. So what my mother used to say is that this is a true test to the people of the world. Do we understand God's creation or do we not? Are we just living for ourselves? And she said, that's scary because there'll be a time that we're going to be judged on that. And for me, in understanding all this and going across the country, visiting so many people, we are in that time. Because the greatest gift God gave us is this mother, the earth. And even in the prophecy, when we talk about Oak Flat's a female. You can be born there and you can die there of old age because you have everything there. These precious places is what is being murdered, what is being killed. Because these other mountains who just have rocks, those are male mountains. They don't produce nothing. But the female mountain gives life. And that's why in Apache, our ceremony is so important when it comes to the female. The books never say anything about our religious belief. It's the continuing of life and the blessed gift of life. And the females of all the world, how crucial they are to us. And the men's purpose of taking care of it. Because that's the greatest thing God gave us. And yet, it's being destroyed. And that's the saddest part for me, because I say to the Creator, God, you created these people too. What do we do? You know, we live in a capitalist world that money, power means more. How do we wake them up? So I want to leave you with two things. In the town of Globe, the mining people came in the town of Globe, the restaurant was full. And I was in there by myself eating because I just came down from Oak Flats. And when the man with a necktie recognized me, he walks over and he says really loud to everybody, he says, "Wensler Nosey. People, the guy that's stopping you from getting jobs, the guy that's stopping for the great state of Arizona to have revenue, to provide for education, for the things that you need, stopping technology for cars, future cars, electrical cars." He was naming all kinds of stuff. Your kids, handphones, laptops, computers. This is the man. And, I just kind of sat there and I thought, okay. So I got up and he kind of backed off. And then I said, "Can I stand?" I said, "I'm just not used to somebody standing over me and yelling at me." I said, "I'm not going to do anything to you. I just want to stand." So I stood up and I said, "So pretend he's here." So I turned to the people in the restaurant and I said, "He's talking about you. He's talking about you." What he said was, he said, "You're greedy and you're disobedient and you want more. You want more." That's why he has to go after the copper. He has to go after all these. He's not blaming himself. He's blaming you. So he's not talking to me. I said, he's talking to you guys. I said, because for me, I said, the environment that God created the world is first. Because all these things come from God's creation. So I said, he's not talking to me. I said, I hope you're listening to him. I said, yeah, he's talking about you. And all he could do was turn around and go out. And I didn't know what I was hoping, but everybody in the restaurant clapped. And they were really, they got angry. Because that's how corporations look at you. Just like the high diabetes. They're not going to tell you it's sugar. They're not going to tell you all those things. I mean, all the bad health comes from all of that. All our bad conditions come from that. So what I tell the people is that I know we can't just stop, but I know we can pull the rein and pull it back and slow it down and do what's right. I said, I know we can do that. So my last one that I want to end with is, when I go places, I kind of like to go alone because it gives me the opportunity to visit and talk to people. Well, this morning I got a chance to hang out in the park. But when I went to Circle K, you know how I have the water 2 for 1? You can buy this and get another one for free. So I got 2 waters and I went to the park. And I sat down and there was a man here underneath the tree. Homeless person with all his little stuff. And so I thought, I got 2 waters, and I'm going to go give him one. So I went over to him, and I gave him a water. And I kind of stayed there with him, and we kind of started to talk. And then he said to me, why are you doing this to me? I said, no, it's 2 for 1 I got. I'm not going to drink both of them. He said, are you feeling sorry for me? I said, no, I'm not feeling sorry for you. I said, you're like my brother. I said, here. And so he calmed down and he said, then he started to kind of cry. And he said that he's not going to live long. There's things going wrong with him. And he was bleeding from behind. And he said, I'm not going to live long. He said, so I've been praying about my family. I've been praying about everyone. He said, but you know what? And he pointed to the people, cars going by, And he said, at least I'm not like them. He said, I believe in the earth. He said, I believe in all this stuff here. He said, he said, God will bless you for giving me water and not feeling sorry for me. He said, but I cry and I pray for all these people. He said, because I know what's going on. We're killing what God gave us. We're killing it. But I pray to God and I tell them, forgive these people. And I thought, wow, how many of those people that people pass by every day that are saying prayers for us because we're the abusers? You know, it's something really hard to look at, but you have to look at yourself. Because what I tell people, you know, it's different in Apache, but the similarity in English is that it's a personal journey first to a sacred unity. Because you gotta deal with yourself first before you can help anybody. And you gotta be real about yourself. Because from that will come healing, and from that will come joining together to do what's right. And when we look at it from that perspective, you know, and I hate to say it, you look at our leaders, you know, where are they on that? I know those of us that go through obstacles every day, we deal with that. So we understand it. But where are they? And that's a really scary picture to look at. But it's self-evaluation, and that's really crucial, because before we do anything, before I even speak to you, I got to look at myself. I have to look at myself. Because if this isn't the time, then I won't be speaking today. It'll be another time. Because there will be things that I need to work on. Because it's really important, like I tell people, when you talk to people of their own spirit, because they have their spirit, and you don't want to misguide it. And that's why being here today, tonight, is family. This is why I'm speaking to you this way. It's not me doing a presentation. You're my family. We need each other. And that's why I really like this little program. Bring the protection of Oak Flat into your heart of your spiritual commitment, community, and raising a prayer concern, holding a ceremony or organizing an action event, bring awareness. Wow, whoever did this, I mean, thank you. Because you could do it anywhere and everywhere. To say a prayer is the most powerful thing. Because the way we taught is when we're in a place like this, there's a strong spiritual energy. It hears all of us. So in our hearts, like I did in the opening where we touch, and if our hearts is touched by this, we can touch it, it hears us. Because this might be a war with the deities with what these people are doing to Mother Earth. Because I tell people, we need that spirit now. Because as human beings, we kind of messed up. I mean, we have to admit to that. So, but we still have to believe in the way God created the world to be. Because there are still those things there to help protect the earth for our children and those yet to be born. Because all of us in here have already had a life. We're trying to preserve it for the ones yet to be born. That's our responsibility. And this is the belief that we have. And that's why I know that our fight is everybody's fight. So I pray in our way that meaning that the Creator is here with us, or what He sends here in the Spirit, and that He feels what's in our heart. Because that's so important. Because what we fight is what is old. When the world came to be, when envy came and jealousy came, when power came into play, that's when Lucifer started, in the very beginning. And that's why we say, what Lucifer recognized is when you bring the old way back, because he's familiar with that. Because that's how he was affected by. But this evil just moved across this world like a cancer, eating up, eating up. And that's why I'm so proud about this church, because you bring the old way back. You bring the old way because that's what God knows, and that's what the Spirit knows. We're kind of like lost children, but we're coming back. And that's what's so important, that we need to remind ourselves, and remind ourselves that everything has a right to live. And so, the learning continues. The appreciation of you all listening and giving me that opportunity, and you to come into my shoes and look it through my eyes. I thank you for that. I wish leaders of this country would listen to the Indian people. And I always say, and I said this in Washington, one day when the Indian people have a seat at the table, then this country will heal, and we can show the rest of the world how to heal. That's why this place was chosen last of what we're all dealing with today. And that's what we cannot forget in letting the corporate world dictate to us what it should be. Because that's where we're losing. And I have to be honest about it, because I speak from the transition of what our family have seen, and how we felt, and how we cry, and how we hurt. So we need your prayers. We need your actions. You guys all have skills. You all have a way to communicate. You know the system. But once we wake up everybody and wake up what we're doing, then it's going to put pressure where pressure should be. Not suppressing the rest of us. Those people were put in places for a reason. And if we don't remind them, then sometimes it's our fault. But we do have that ability. And I tell people that the only way I will fight this is spiritually, because that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with something really evil. And it cannot be described in a political way. It has to be defined. I said, people need to see where evil sits. So with that, thank you all for listening and being here tonight and welcoming us as family. So I really thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. The Apache have given us something very precious. What do we offer back? Will you pray, perhaps every day, for Oak Flat? Can you commit that? Might you think of 3 people who you will tell the story, buy a t-shirt for, and explain something about Oak Flat and why, if this sacred place is destroyed, we are all damaged. We can stop it, but one person cannot stop it, even though he is very smart. One people, the Apache people, cannot stop it, even though they are very strong. It's going to take all of us neighbors. It's going to take all of us neighbors together with the power of the land and the power of the angels on duty, those deities as you call them, to turn around the destruction. So think about what you will do, and think about the communities that you bring into this room, and let's give something back. I have brought something from my home. It is water that fell here as rain. It's not mine, it's God's. And it hasn't reached the ground yet. And Mike, if you would go and collect with each person who stands up, and we don't have time for a long speech, only would you name the community that you bring into this room? You bring yourself, but you bring your communities too. And just say something along the lines of, maybe everyone from Shalom Mennonite Fellowship could stand up right now. That's the church I pastor. And maybe one of you, could you get close to one of them, Mike, can say, Shalom stands with Oak Flat.
Shalom stands with Oak Flat.
Amen.
Let's fill the bowl. Stand and say the community that you bring into this room.
I am bringing Southside Presbyterian Church.
Woo!
Yes, outside.
Maybe the folks at the back can all go together so you don't make Mike work so hard.
St. Andrew's Episcopal Church stands
Thank
with Oak Flats.
Ooh.
Southside stands with Oak Flats.
What other communities are here?
The Coalition to Dismantle the Doctrine of Discovery stands with Oak Flat.
The Church of the Painted Hills United Church of Christ stands with Oak Flat.
Union Church, Church of Christ Union in Beverly, Kentucky stands with the Oak Flats.
Mr. Nosy, Save the Scenic Santa Rita stands with Oak Flat.
Our Savior's Lutheran Church stands with Oak Flat.
Arizona-Palestine Solidarity Alliance stands with Oak Flat.
I'd like to speak for Grace St. Paul's, our wonderful church.
Woo! Thank you for hosting us.
The National Poor People's Campaign stands with Oak Flat.
Yes.
The indigenous people of Ireland stand with Oak Flats.
If you didn't hear that, she said the indigenous people of Ireland stand with Oak Flat.
And Pope Francis in the Sea Laudato stands with Oak Flats. Well, the Sea Laudato says so.
We stand together. We pour out our lives with you. May our solidarity be as generous as a deep and full monsoon season that does not stop until Oak Flat is safe and protected and in Apache hands. We'll send this rainwater back with you. Mike.
So we have a banner hanging on the wall outside the Church of the Painted Hills. At the top of the banner in bold caps are the words, "Be the Church." The banner is a reminder to us that church may be a noun, but more importantly, it is a verb. It requires action. And then underneath that bold heading, the banner suggests 9 actions needed to be the church. So one of the actions that speaks to why we are here tonight is share earthly and spiritual resources. In general terms, each of us has 3 earthly resources: time, talent, and treasure. So I invite each of us to consider how we can use our time, talent, and treasure to stand with Oak Flat. And I'll give you a hint about the treasure. There's a merch table out back that you can visit on your way out if you'd like. The spiritual resource I want to share with you tonight on behalf of my congregation is this blessing. May God grant you courage to stand firm against those who oppose you. May God provide you with the resources, both earthly and spiritual, to remain in this struggle until a successful outcome. May God open your minds to the wisdom needed to most effectively use those resources. May God bless you with the hope needed to stay strong and persevere. May God surround you with allies to stand beside you and support you. And may God keep you safe from all harm today and every day. Amen.
Steve.
So how about if we have all of the clergy that are here gather around Wensler and Apache Stronghold. And when I get to the blessing part of this, we'll have you extend your hands. And I'm going to ask all of you here to extend your hands over Wensler and Apache Stronghold when we get to the blessing, okay? But, so just come on up. All right. In the beginning was a desert wilderness. The Eternal One spoke through that desert to an indigenous couple named Sarah and Abraham, telling them that they would be the parents of a great faith tradition. As it turned out, 2 major religions would form out of that desert experience: Islam and Judaism. Then the Creator would speak to another indigenous man on the top of a mountain through the plant life in the wilderness. Moses would then lead his tribe out of slavery and right back into the desert wilderness. There, his tribe would travel for 40 years, coming to experience and understand their God through the land itself, through the rivers, the plants, and the animals of that desert. The voice of one crying out from the wilderness is also not just a Jewish or a Muslim voice. The Christian experience begins also with a sacramental rite in the back of beyond, the baptism of some guy named Jesus in a place referred to in our sacred text as wilderness. This indigenous man becomes one with the river and the desert, and it propels him to spend another 40 days in the wild to hear God's voice. Through his revelations in that desert, he would form the basis of a new philosophy that would change the course of world religion. When the disciples of this man would have their most profound experience of the Creator in their lives, it would be a revelation of the divine on top of another mountain wilderness. Whether we are speaking of our Jewish or Islamic roots or the birth of Christianity, our traditions all contain the land as a central character in the narrative. Spiritual discernment and then revelation consistently occurs for us in the wilderness. In fact, without wilderness, the entire Judeo-Islamic Christian faith tradition would not exist. Wilderness, in and of itself, is just as important in the institution and development of our religion as any human being. Our religious history begins in the wild and it evolves in the wild. Though nothing is stated more clearly in our traditions, we somehow completely lost this central dynamic of our faith. The Creator has always been revealed to us through creation. But when we lost our indigenous roots, we also lost our understanding of the role of wilderness in our faith. Beloved, the Apache people have never lost this connection. They understand and revere their revelations of the Creator through nature, through the desert wilderness. They have never lost sight of the fact that it is impossible for any of us to experience the essence of God without the desert wilderness. That is why this evening we ask for your blessing on Apache Stronghold. We ask that you continually bless the people who have stayed connected to you since time immemorial through the sacred place called Oak Flat. We pray to you that you protect them from a culture that has lost its way to God, from individuals who have never known you through the wilderness, from people who have lost their understanding that by destroying Oak Flats, they are destroying you, the Creator. We also pray for your protection of this sacred land itself, the precious natural springs and streams of this stunning riparian desert. We pray for your protection of the cliffs, the canyons, the old-growth emery oaks, the places where you have been revealed to the Apache people since before the formations of Judaism and Christianity. Bless and protect this land so that the descendants of the Apache people will continue to discover you through the rites and ceremonies that can only happen in this priceless desert wilderness. We also pray that you will open the hearts and minds of those who have lost their understanding of why this land must be protected. We pray that the essence of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity can be rediscovered through listening to the people who have never lost their link to God through the wilderness. We pray that Apache Stronghold and all of us continue to have the courage to fight to protect your presence in Oak Flats against all odds. We pray first for wilderness designation for Oak Flats, that it may stay in its natural state forever, protected from all outside threats. Once established as wilderness, we then pray for return of the land's protection to the Apache people, who will always devote themselves to it as if it is part of you, because it is part of you. If we allow Oak Flat to be butchered, if we allow its heart to be removed by destroying the source of life within it, we are killing not just a beautiful landscape, not just the spiritual home of the Apache people, but we are killing the heart of every faith tradition. We cannot let that happen. Not now, not ever. Amen.
Take us out with song, please.
Is that our cue?
That's your cue.
That was such a beautiful talk. Thank you so much, Winslow. I feel like the best part of the show was in the beginning and the whole thing is backwards. And the Pope in C. Laudato, or Laudato Si, I always mix it up, said exactly everything that you said about capitalism and consumerism and the evil of consumerism. You said the same thing as the Pope in your own beautiful way. Thank you so much. Some of them were dreamers. Some of them were fools. They were making plans and thinking of the future. And with the energy of the innocent, they were gathering the tools they would need to make the journey back to nature. While the sand slipped through the opening and the sand reached for the golden ring, in their hearts they turned to each other's hearts for refuge. In the troubled years that came before the deluge, some of them knew pleasure, some of them knew pain, and for some of them it was only the moment that mattered. On the crazy wings of youth, they would fly around in the rain, and their feathers, once so fine, grew torn and tattered. And in the end,
Okay, and in the resignation. Where you want to start?
and in the end, they traded their tired wings for the resignation that living brings. Exchanged love's bright and fragrant glow for the glitter and the rouge. In a moment, they were swept before the deluge. Let the music keep our spirits high. Let the buildings keep our children dry. Let creation keep her secrets by and by, by and by. And the light that's lost within us reaches the sky. Some of them were angry at the way the earth was abused by the men who tried to turn her beauty into power. And they struggled to protect her from them, only to be confused by the magnitude of her fury in the final hour. When the sand slipped through the opening and the decade of only a few survived, with attempts to understand something so simple and so huge. And they believed that they were meant to live after the deluge. Let the music keep our spirits high. Let the buildings keep our children dry. Let creation leave her secrets by and by, and the light that's lost within us reach to the sky. Let the music keep our spirits high. Let the buildings keep our children dry. the light that's lost within us reach to the sky.
Beloved, go in peace, safe, and imagining what your part is in protecting Oak Flat. Amen.
Thank you all. Let's do it.